Hi guys, and a huge welcome to a video that I have been super excited to do, because the main character in this video is my new FX Impact M3. In today's video I'll be going through the gun and see what are the differences between the old Mark II and the new M3. And after that I'll introduce you to some of the upgrades that I've done to the gun before I even started shooting. And after the gun has been properly introduced, I'll take it to my range in my backyard and shoot it at 34 meters and see how it performs. And after the shooting, I'll do a conclusion of what I think about the gun and what it's been like owning it after the first 2 weeks. So let's get started. Okay, for the introduction of the gun and the new features, I'll be behind the camera like this, but you can consider yourself lucky because then you don't have to look at my ugly face. I know I'm a little late to the party because the first M3s came out like a long time ago, but in the 177 caliber it's been quite a wait. And I don't know how many is actually out there, but I think I'm actually was one of the first ones in Denmark actually to receive it. But yeah, let's go back to the gun and introduce some of the new features on the gun. Starting back here with the new buttstock, different design. I can imagine that it also saves some weight. We have the magazine. It's not new, but it seems like it's functioning way better than the old one. You don't have to tighten up the spring, or you don't have to change the insert to make it flow freely. So that's definitely an upgrade that you feel every day. Next up, we have the gauges, and that's all the way around. They've been upgraded to be Viking gauges. That's a smart move because the old gauges were actually not that great. And as you can see here, next upgrade, the power plenum 720. I don't know if it's really necessary when you're shooting the 177, but anyway, it looks good, and I think 720 is some kind of a reference to a car. I'm not sure. But maybe someone can point it out to me in the comment section. Next one is the power wheel. It now has 16 settings, which is actually nice. I did a video on how you can add extra settings to your Mark II. And next one is the macro adjuster. Actually, it's not a new feature because before you could just set in your Allen key and you can turn it, but it's much more accessible now, and it's much more, it's something that you'll use every day. So one click is like 1 or 2 feet per second, so that's a major advantage. Up here you have the new cocking block. Looking at it from the other side, I don't know if the light is good over here, but it's much shorter, it's easier to cock, and on top of that you can change it to the other side of the gun without having to add extra parts, the ones from Saber Tactical for instance. So continuing, we've been over the gauges, and in here is like the biggest update of the whole gun, in my mind, definitely. That's the first stage regulator. So instead of only reducing the pressure once, you now reduce it twice, and that gives a much lower spread when you're shooting. Up here, there's a new valve knob. It's easier to grab. And the last thing that I want to mention on the 177 is that the barrel is now 600 millimeters instead of 500. I think that's all the upgrades on the M3 that's worth mentioning. But if I forgot some, please leave a comment in the comment section below. Now let's go into the upgrades that I've done to the gun. This is the gun that I'll mainly be shooting here on my channel, so I think it needs to be introduced properly. So once again, starting back here, I have the Saber Tactical bag rider. I have the Saber Tactical Arca Swiss rail here. And in case some of you have been wondering, I know that I was, these rails fits both the Mark II and the M3. Then I have my Accutech bipod. Up here at the end of the Arca Swiss rail, there's actually a little piece that's Picatinny. and it fits a scope mount that I've mounted here and a pole for the chronograph. I've mounted it like this because if you want to mount it directly on your moderator, it affects the accuracy of the gun. But I like to both measure the velocity and have accuracy at the same time, so that's why I made this. Being in this end of the gun, I have the human moderator. I just received it the other day. It reduces the sound quite a lot, and it's a super nice fit for the M3. Here I have the harmonic barrel tuner. I did a video on how to set it up and find the right setting for it. And now for the part that you can't really see, but anyway you can just get a glimpse of it here. It's the carbon fiber barrel housing. I have a buddy of mine who makes them, and it makes the barrel much more stiff, and it reduces the vibrations of the barrel. And speaking of the barrel, I also have the carbon fiber barrel sleeve inside the gun here. I don't know why FX doesn't make it standard, because it should be standard in my mind, definitely. The last upgrade I've done to the gun is to install the dual transfer port from Huma. So that was the tour of the gun. So now it's time to take it into the yard and test it out at my 34 meter range. Okay, so now I'm out here in my backyard at my 34 meter range, firing some shots. Not gonna count them too much, but just fire away and see how it goes. Yeah, I think that will do. Let's measure it up. Okay, so now back inside with the result of the shooting, and as you can see here, it's a pretty decent group. Putting my finger next to it, I would say it's pretty okay. So now it's time to draw a conclusion and see what do I think of the gun after having it for 2 weeks. There are quite a few things that I really like, and one small thing that has just made a huge difference is the magazine. It's actually working now. It's spinning. It doesn't stop, and you don't have to fiddle with it for it to spin on. You don't have to change the spring or anything, because now it works, and it's a 34 shot magazine in 177, and I just love it. Next up is the dual regulator system. It works so well. I mean, on the old, it's not that old, but on the Mark II, to be completely honest, there was a difference in spread if you filled the gun to 250 bar to when it was down to 230 bar. So actually I avoided it at the end to fill the gun to more than 230 to get less spread on my shooting. But with this one, I can fill it to 250, and because of the first stage regulator is set, I think mine is set at 170, it's probably, no, 160 I think it is. It's probably too high because my regulator is at 105, but anyway, my spread is so low and my standard deviations is much more respectable. Of course, if I tuned my Mark II right, I could reduce it as well. But this just comes like this from the factory, and it's just a blast shooting it. Next up is the barrel. I wanted the 600 millimeters, and that's actually why I got the gun in the first place, because there was nowhere that you can find a 600 millimeter liner, just a liner. So that was a very big reason for me to actually get the gun, because of course it costs some money and I have to sell my Mark II, but I just had to have it. So yeah, and it's a huge difference because shooting the Mark II, I had the regulator at 127 bar, I think it was. No, I lowered it because I had the superior liner in it. I had it at 115, but now with the 600mm liner, I have it at 105. But there is actually one thing that I want to address, and that is the transfer port. Because when I bought it, I thought that it was like all the other calibers where there were two different sides of the transfer port, one for pellets and one for slugs. So when I received it and there was only a small hole for pellets, I was actually a bit disappointed, and I tried to tune it to shoot at the same velocities that I shot with my Mark II, but I had the regulator cranked all the way up to 120 bar, which is a lot for a 177. So I was not really satisfied with that, so that's why I chose to change it to the dual port from Huma. And immediately after, no changes at all done other than changing the transfer port, I went from I think it was 985 and all the way up to 1040 something, and that was just because of the transfer port. So I don't know why FX doesn't install these bigger transfer ports in it, but I would suggest that they start doing it because it's quite important to the gun, I think. And now with all those good things said about the gun, there is something that I just want to address, because after 5 days I had a leak from the back of the power plenum here, and I actually thought that after 5 days I'm not all that ecstatic when a new gun starts to leak. It was an easy fix. I know how to take the gun apart. It's not much different from the Mark II, but 5 days, I mean, come on, that was a bit of a bummer. Easy fix. It's tight now, no problems at all. But that was just I would love to have been without that. And after that, there was an issue that I couldn't fix because my spread was just huge and the accuracy was gone and everything. But it came down to me not being too observant, because the O-ring that is inside the transfer port was broken. So yeah, of course, the spread was all over the place. I actually wrote the guy that sold me the gun, Christian from Arms Gallery in Copenhagen, and he was so kind helping me out. But another time, Christian, I'm sorry that I bothered you with that. I promise that the next time I forget to turn on my brain, I won't hassle you like this. But yeah, anyway, I fixed it. The O-ring was an easy fix, and now the gun is shooting like a baby. Like a baby? You can't say that a gun is shooting like a baby. No, never mind, it's shooting pretty well. So my conclusion of the gun is that I am extremely happy with my new gun, and even though it's a lot of money to pay for a new gun, I think it's definitely worth the change. So if you're standing there considering, should I do it, should I not, I would say that yeah, you should definitely do it. But if you have questions about the gun, I would be more than happy to answer them. I'm not sure that I can answer all the questions, but leave a comment in the comment section below and I'll do my very best. And if you're one of those who actually have an M3 and you have some experiences that you don't think that I've been around, just write them in the comment section as well, because you might be able to help some of those who's in the phase of making up their minds if they are buying the gun. So yeah, with that said, that's my first impressions of the gun. There will be much more shooting with this gun on my channel in the future. Now we just have to get some weather that's a little better, so I don't freeze my ass off while I'm out there shooting. But until next time, take care and shoot safe.